the line to talk to Paul in Ormskirk about legal highs and drugs. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, Adrian.
Hello, mate, yeah.
Yeah, I've just been listening to the calls about drugs, and maybe slightly controversial, but I just think all drugs should be legalised, come what may, including heroin, by the way.
Do you or have you consumed any?
Do I what, sorry?
Have you ever had any drugs?
Tobacco, alcohol and cannabis.
Right,
Cannabis was years ago.
So you've never done heroin, let's say, then, even though you said that should be legalised, yeah?
No, I haven't, but I just don't see why what you put in your body should be illegal. It's a substance. I mean, you know, people say, oh, if you eat too many chips, you'll get fat, you'll have your arteries clogged, and you'll cost the NHS money and die from maybe a heart attack. So what difference is heroin? It's a physical substance that you put in your body.
Look, I suppose, Paul, the argument is that, you know, governments take upon themselves, but we expect them to as well, take on themselves the responsibility for making sure that we don't come to harm. You know, so that yes, you could get in a car without a seat belt, but you would statistically be less safe than if you wear your seat belt.
Do you reckon that Adrian Goldberg's a Jew?
That you should wear a seat belt. Now, you know, you can choose to ignore it, but that's the law, so that you know, the government says, look, you know, we're doing this in your best interest for all of us, and that's the same argument that leads to the banning of heroin.
Right, okay. Well, let's put it another way. The so-called war on drugs has been going on since 1974, and when this war on drugs was declared, when heroin, actually, by the way, wasn't made illegal until 1969, and most of the drugs weren't made legal, and since then drug consumption has rocketed exponentially. So drugs may be illegal, but since they've been made illegal, more and more people have been taking them. So, and most 80% of people in jail are there because of drug-related crimes. So what I'm saying is, why not legalise them? Say, like make them 18 years before you're allowed to take them, tax them, and treat them as a medical problem. I mean, you're allowed to take morphine, which is not far off heroin anyway, to get you off heroin. So why not make it legal, get it out of the criminals' hands? Yeah,
well, I mean, we've had that discussion on this show, and you know, I think there is something to it. It is very interesting. If you think of the illegal drugs, the latest statistics show that seizures of Class A drugs have gone 400% higher now than they were in 1997. Now, there are two reasons for that. One is either that the police have got much better at finding out where the Class A drugs are, or, as I suspect, and as I think the police suspect, it's because there's more of it about. So, as you suggest, you know, banning drugs and the war on drugs certainly isn't stopping them getting into circulation. The amount of cocaine on the streets has increased by 150% in just 3 years. So there's loads of that about. And then you move to these illegal drugs, and I suppose, you know, the argument for banning the legal highs is that, you know, they too can do you harm.
Well, look at tobacco and alcohol. I mean, the two most common drugs are tobacco and alcohol. About 90% of the adult population drink alcohol regularly, and a quarter smoke tobacco. Now, they're the main two. Now, if they were made illegal, say tomorrow, do you really think that 90% of the people would suddenly stop drinking alcohol and a quarter of the people would stop drinking tobacco? It would be like Prohibition was in the 1920s. The fact is they exist, that's why people take them.
It is slightly different though, Paul, in that certainly alcohol and tobacco to an extent, you know, have been part of our ingrained culture, our collective culture.
Yes, but most of these other drugs that have been banned since 1970, most of those drugs were legal until then.
No, but they weren't part of our collective mass culture, were they? I mean, you know, cannabis may have been available for most people in Britain.
Cocaine was illegal until 1904.
Yeah, Brett, you're not listening to me. They were not drugs that were commonly consumed. Alcohol has been for centuries in Britain commonly consumed. Tobacco, by a lesser number of people, but still a large number, has been massively consumed. Now, it may be true that cannabis and heroin and cocaine were not illegal, but they were not consumed. So people didn't learn the ways to control their use of them. You know, there weren't the social codes that went with them.
Yeah, but do you find it, I mean, the fact that, what my argument is that if drugs were made legal, not more people would take them, because tobacco's legal. Only 1 in 4 adults smoke it. Now, I don't take any other drugs apart from alcohol and tobacco. Whether they were legal or not, I could get them if I wanted to, and most people could. That's my point, is that they should be legalised, medicalised, and taxed. Therefore, they'd be safer, there'd be less criminals, and the government would make revenue off them, and less people would die from them. Do you see my point there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, well, look, Paul put it out there. I think that it's a point that's been made, and I think it is a point that's worth hearing. That prohibition, and we know it from history, does not work, and yet we continue to prohibit certain types of drugs. But as I say, I'm really keen to explore these this world of legal highs, because these are things that are not prohibited. They're things that you can get your hands on, and I just want to know whether do us more harm than good. London, come on, man. Terry and Crawley, relating to a previous caller, says, how can that idiot compare heroin with chips? No one has ever burgled the house or carried out a street robbery to feed a chip habit. The council had...
Yeah, but I reckon more people die from chips than anything